The air smelled of pine and dust that afternoon, the kind of dry mountain scent that carried both peace and danger. The group had hiked for nearly 2 hours up the rocky trail, laughing, shouting, and occasionally stopping to snap selfies with the endless valley stretching beneath them. It was supposed to be a weekend challenge, the Devil's Drop, as the locals called it, a jagged cliff used by experienced climbers for practice. Lexi walked behind them, quiet and observant. Her short brown hair stuck to her forehead, her pack light compared to the others. She wasn't new to hiking, though they treated her like she was. She had joined the university's outdoor club just a week earlier, hoping to find peace, not popularity. But she quickly noticed how people like Tyler, the self-proclaimed leader, used every outing to show off. His jokes were cruel, and his laughter was loud enough to fill the silence she preferred. When they reached the summit, the view opened like a painting, orange cliffs slicing into the sky, clouds hovering over distant peaks, the valley stretching like an ocean of green. The group dropped their bags and cheered. Lexi smiled faintly, kneeling to tie her boots tighter. She was focused on the climb. They'd come to do a short descent down the rock face to a lower ledge and back up again. It wasn't too difficult, but the drop beneath was real. All right, who's going first? Tyler called out, scanning the faces around him. No one volunteered. He grinned, eyes landing on Lexi. How about our new recruit? You said you like challenges, right? Lexi looked up at him calmly. Sure, she said, but we should double. Check the gear first. The wind's picking up. Tyler smirked. You scared? She met his gaze evenly. I'm careful. Her tone didn't amuse him. He turned to the others with an exaggerated sigh. Careful, he mocked. Come on, this isn't the army or something. We're here to have fun. The others laughed, more at his tone than his words, and Lexi quietly stood, inspecting her carabiner and ropes. Then came the moment that changed everything. Lexi stepped to the edge, testing the rock with her boot. The wind swept her hair across her face, but her balance was steady. She crouched, ready to secure her harness. That's when Tyler leaned closer and whispered just loud enough for the others to hear. Let's see if she can handle the real thing. Before she could turn around, a hard shove came to her shoulder. The world tilted. Her breath caught in her throat as her feet lost the ground. She saw the sky, the edge, the blur of shocked faces, then nothing but air and gravity. A scream tore through the canyon, sharp and raw, echoing off the cliffs. Dust rose where she disappeared, scattering into the wind. The laughter that followed was short and nervous. One of the girls gasped. Tyler, what the hell did you just do? He froze, the grin on his face faltering. She's fine, he stammered. She had a rope. But when they turned, her climbing gear was still sitting where she'd left it, neatly coiled beside her pack. No one spoke for several seconds. The only sound was the low whistle of the mountain breeze. Lexi, Tyler shouted, voice cracking. Lexi, can you hear me? No answer. The group rushed to the edge, peering down. The cliff fell nearly 100 feet to jagged rocks and a narrow ledge far below. The light made the drop seem endless. Fear crept into every face. Maybe she caught something on the way down. One whispered. Another said, call for help. But there was no signal here, only silence, heavy and accusing. Tyler swallowed hard, the color draining from his face. His chest heaved with shallow breaths as he stared into the void below. He hadn't meant to, at least, that's what he told himself. It was supposed to be a joke, a harmless push. But now his hands were shaking. Tyler, what if she's... Don't say it. He snapped. Minutes dragged like hours. The laughter that once echoed so easily now felt like a curse hanging in the air. Guilt pressed on every chest, but no one dared to move. The valley below remained still, no voice, no movement, no sign of life. Then, somewhere faint, a small sound broke the silence, a scrape against stone. A soft, rhythmic noise, distant but real. Someone gasped. Did you hear that? Tyler's eyes darted toward the edge again. He leaned forward, his pulse pounding in his ears. Another sound came stronger this time, like fingers gripping rock. No one dared to speak, but a collective realization spread through the group like fire. She wasn't gone. Something or someone was climbing back. The faint scraping echoed again, sharper this time, like nails dragging against stone. The group froze, exchanging nervous glances. Dust trickled down the cliff face, catching in the sunlight like falling sparks. Tyler's pulse thundered in his ears. It's probably a rock slide. he muttered, though his voice trembled. But deep down he knew. Lexi. One of the girls called out, her tone trembling between hope and disbelief. Another sound came, the distinct thud of a boot finding purchase. Then came the impossible sight. A hand, raw, scraped, and trembling, gripped the edge of the cliff's lower ridge. The knuckles were red, skin torn, blood, mixing with dirt. Slowly, another hand appeared, and then, as if the mountain itself was returning her, Lexi's head rose into view. Her expression wasn't one of fear. It was focused calm, deliberate, deadly calm. Her chest rose and fell with steady breaths. Strands of hair clung to her face, and streaks of blood ran down from her scraped cheek. The group stood in stunned silence, none of them daring to move or speak. She didn't say a word. Her fingers dug into the rock, searching for another hold, and with a slow, practiced pull, she lifted herself another few feet higher. The wind howled around her, whipping the loose strands of her hair, but her eyes never wavered from the stone. Every motion was precise, methodical, efficient. Not the desperate flailing of someone terrified, but the practiced rhythm of someone who knew what they were doing. Tyler stepped back, face pale. How is she doing that? He stammered. She's not using a rope. Someone whispered. They all leaned closer to the edge, watching as Lexi climbed. The cliff she was scaling wasn't meant for free climbing. Even advanced climbers used safety lines here. The rock was sharp and brittle in places, with loose shale that could break under pressure. Yet she climbed as though the mountain were her ally, every hold chosen with care, every movement deliberate. Her left boot slipped once, sending a cascade of pebbles tumbling down the canyon. The group gasped, but she caught herself instantly, body tightening, weight shifting with seamless instinct. Her right hand reached higher, finding a small protrusion of rock, and she continued, unfazed. As minutes passed, the sound of her movements became a rhythm, the scrape of boots, the grunt of effort, the sharp exhale of focus. She was ascending with nothing but raw determination, and a will forged from something deeper than survival. The group's chatter died completely. Tyler stood rigid, sweat beading on his forehead despite the chill wind. He watched, unable to look away. The girl he'd pushed, the one he thought would scream and fall, was climbing back up a wall of death with the calm precision of a soldier. Something inside him twisted. When Lexi was about halfway up, she paused for the first time. Her body pressed against the rock. She turned her head just slightly enough to glance upward. Her gaze met theirs. Even from that distance, they could see the intensity in her eyes. It wasn't rage or vengeance, it was something colder, something that made every guilty heart on the ridge freeze. Then she kept climbing. The sun began to dip lower, bathing the canyon in orange light. The shadows of the group stretched long behind them as Lexi's form rose steadily toward the top. Every inch she gained seemed to pull something heavy from their souls, the weight of what they'd done sinking in with every heartbeat. "I didn't mean to," Tyler started, but his voice cracked halfway through. No one answered. The others simply stared, their faces pale and drawn, as if speaking might make the moment real. The rhythmic sound of her ascent continued until it became all they could hear. Scrape, grip, pull, breath, again and again, the same pattern, relentless, unstoppable. By the time she neared the final ledge, her arms trembled with effort, her palms raw and bleeding, but her eyes steady and bright were untouched by weakness. With one last surge of strength, she drove her boot against the cliff, pushed upward, and caught the lip of the edge with both hands. The rock cut into her skin, but she didn't flinch, and then, slowly, she began to pull herself over. The group instinctively stepped back as her head and shoulders rose above the edge. The sight was surreal. Lexi, covered in dirt and blood, emerging from the same drop they thought had claimed her life. Her breathing was heavy but measured. Her gaze swept across each of them, one by one. Tyler's lips parted, but no words came out. His voice, his arrogance had left him. Lexi's eyes lingered on him for a moment longer before she planted her knee on the ground and pushed herself up completely. The scraping sound stopped. The canyon fell silent again, except for the distant whistle of the wind, and in that silence the truth settled like a storm. The girl they had laughed at, mocked, and pushed over the edge, had climbed back without ropes, without help, without fear, and now she was standing again. For a long, tense moment, no one spoke. The only sounds were the wind whispering across the cliffs and Lexi's slow, controlled breathing. Dust clung to her cheeks, mixing with streaks of blood. Her palms were raw, trembling slightly, yet she stood tall, steady, unbroken. The group stared at her as if they'd seen a ghost crawl out of the earth. Tyler's mouth opened, but no words came. His usual grin, his smirk that never left, was gone. In its place was pale disbelief. "Lexi," he finally whispered. I didn't mean," she cut him off with a look. No words, no anger, just the cold, focused stare of someone who'd seen too much to waste breath on excuses. The others backed away instinctively, as if her silence carried weight heavier than any shout could. Lexi brushed the dirt from her hands, flexing her fingers despite the pain. Every scrape burned, but she didn't show it. She took a slow breath, filling her lungs with the sharp mountain air, grounding herself. Then she stepped closer to them, each footfall deliberate, measured. "Do you know what happens," she said quietly, "when you fall from that height and you don't panic?" The question hung in the air. Tyler blinked, unsure if it was rhetorical. "You think," Alexei continued. Her voice was calm, but every word was edged like a blade. "You feel every muscle, every breath, every mistake. You don't scream, you survive." The group stood still. No one dared interrupt. She looked over the edge of the cliff she'd just climbed, then back at them. "I used to teach this kind of climb. Vertical rescues. Ice walls, rock faces, collapsed cliffs. We practiced with no ropes, no safety lines. Just trust in your hands and the will to live." A flicker of realization crossed Tyler's face. "Wait, you were in the army?" Lexi nodded slowly. "Mountain Rescue Unit, Afghanistan. My team went where helicopters couldn't. You learn fast when the only thing between you and death is how much you refuse to let go." Silence swallowed the group again. A few of the hikers exchanged guilty looks, eyes darting to the ground. The weight of what they'd done, what could have happened, pressed on them like the gravity Lexi had just defied. Tyler's voice cracked as he tried to speak. I swear it was just a joke. I didn't mean, don't," she said softly. It wasn't a shout. It didn't need to be. Her tone stopped him like a command. "You pushed me, you laughed, and you didn't move when you thought I was gone." Tyler's jaw tightened. Shame and fear tangled in his throat, making it impossible to answer. Lexi turned away from him, looking toward the horizon. The sun was setting now, painting the cliffs in deep gold and crimson. The same cliffs that had almost become her grave now looked like a battlefield she had conquered. "You know what the worst part is," she said, almost to herself. "I wasn't surprised. That made them all look up." She exhaled slowly. "People like you. I've seen them before, on missions and training in life. You laugh until someone stands taller than you, then you break." The wind picked up again, carrying her words away into the valley below. "I don't need an apology," she said finally, "but you do need to remember something." She turned back to face them, and in the glow of the dying sun, her eyes were fierce, unforgiving, yet strangely full of strength rather than hatred. "When you push someone down, you never know what kind of person you're dealing with. Some people fall apart." She paused, stepping closer to Tyler until they stood just a few feet apart. "Others climb back higher than you ever will." Tyler's throat bobbed as he swallowed hard, unable to look her in the eye. His friends stared at the ground, their earlier bravado shattered. Lexi picked up her small pack from where it still lay untouched. She slung it over her shoulder, checked her water bottle, and turned toward the trail leading down the mountain. No one tried to stop her. As she walked away, her silhouette grew smaller against the glowing sky. The wind tugged at her hair, carrying her quiet strength with it. Behind her, the group stood in complete silence, the sound of their earlier laughter now haunting in their ears. One of the girls finally whispered, "She could have died." Tyler didn't respond. He just stared at the cliff's edge, jaw tight, guilt carving lines into his face. The memory of her hand rising over the rock, of those bloodied fingers clawing her way back, would never leave him. Lexi never looked back. The mountain seemed apart for her as she descended, her steps sure, confident, unafraid. The same mountain that had tested her had now witnessed her victory. And somewhere deep in that fading light, her quiet words echoed back like a promise carved into stone. Next time you push someone down, make sure they don't know how to rise higher. The wind carried those words down the valley, leaving the group frozen, their faces pale and their laughter dead in the dusk, because they all knew, without a single doubt, they hadn't just seen her climb a cliff. They'd seen her rise above them,